Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to the Counterculture Podcast. I'm here with my co host and husband, Grant.
Hello.
And today's episode is going to be very exciting. It's one of our favorite topics, at least mine. We're going to be talking about faith, how to have faith, what faith is, and just how to implement it into our daily lives. What?
Why do you like faith so much?
Well, mainly because it's my middle name, but also
I was teeing you up
because
for that.
no, I love talking about faith because it's just the foundations of Christianity. I think, it takes faith to believe in God. It takes faith
Yep.
to walk this life out with God, and it takes faith to trust him. Just, faith falls into every other area in Christianity in our walk with Jesus. So I love talking about it because I think if you can really practice faith in your day to day, everything gets easier. It's one of those fundamental things that I just feel like it gets so much better and easier the longer you do it, and it's so helpful, you know? That's one of the main things that Jesus requires of us is have faith.
Yeah.
Everything else kind of he helps us with it, and he helps us have faith too, but it's more on us, I feel like. If you don't have faith, you can't even trust him. He says to trust me in all these things, but faith is something that's on us. Like, it requires us to take that step and say, "You know what? I'm gonna have faith and trust God. I'm gonna have faith and trust that he died for me," it falls
Yeah.
into everything.
Totally. What do you think is the opposite of faith?
I think most people would say fear, but I don't necessarily agree. I think the opposite of faith is probably unbelief. I don't know, what do you think?
I was expecting you to say unbelief. I guess in my head, I'm not talking about like a literary opposite, but like a functional opposite. When people have faith, it allows them to not need to see the whole picture.
Mhm.
I guess that's what I was trying to say, and I still don't know really how to say that correctly. Faith is the ability to not need to see the whole picture. Being the kind of person that has to have proof,
Mhm.
being like a doubting Thomas. Maybe doubt is a good word. Doubting Thomas, he would not believe that Christ had risen from the dead until he saw Christ, saw the hands, the wounds in his hands, and the wound from the spear in his side. He would not believe until he saw those things.
Mhm.
So he is called Doubting Thomas to this day because he doubted that Christ had risen, even though Christ had told all of them multiple times that he would do that very thing. And multiple disciples had seen him at this point. Still, I won't believe it until I see it. And then you have somebody who is so full of faith that they can hear those words or they can hear the truth and they just believe it. In my head, those are the two options. Those are opposites. So I think I would say doubt.
I think I would agree.
Faith and doubt.
Mhm. Starting off, the number one thing that I think builds faith, because we're gonna be talking about, like, what it is, how to get it, how to implement it into daily life, just every single category. But I think starting off, like, one of the best ways to be able to build your faith is to know who you're putting your faith in. And so it's very easy for people, they always say, just have faith, just have faith. But when it comes to a really big decision, it's not just okay, I'll just blindly say yes. I think it's easier to do when you know who you're putting your faith in. And so that always comes back to knowing who Jesus is, what his character is like, who that person that you're putting your faith in. One of the best ways to do that is to just get in the word, and I think specifically the gospels, because in the gospels it really breaks down Jesus's ministry and what he's doing on earth. You see everything that he did, all the people that he was healing, the people that he was saving, all of the words he was speaking. And I think by seeing all of that and reading that, you're getting to know the character of Jesus. Then when he says, have faith in me, it's a whole lot easier to say, okay, yes, I'm going to do it because I know your character. I've seen through the word. And that's why it's so important to read your Bible, to have those stories to lean on. Because if you really haven't experienced Jesus yet and you don't have your own circumstances to lean on, at least you can go back to the word and say, you know what? There's all of these stories and all of these situations where Jesus was for these people. He was never against them. We're really seeing that in the gospels. When he's healing people, he is for them. It's just easier to be able to say, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to reach out. I'm going to put my faith in God and trust that he's for me. And then obviously, the Lord will always come through. He always does. But again, it's just a lot easier to actually know that once you've experienced it.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's just the first thing that came to my mind when it came to like how to actually get faith and how to actually be better at having faith, but I think first off, we should kind of outline, like, what is the definition of faith?
Yeah, I like that.
There's a lot of scriptures about faith, but I feel like a good definition is just believing in something you can't see. You know, I mean, it really is. It's taking that step in the physical realm to reach out and do something that you know God is telling you to do that you didn't necessarily hear with an audible voice. It's taking a chance on something that you're not proven for a fact that you're actually going to get something in return or,
Yeah,
physically. It's really this trust thing between you and whoever it is, just the definition. It's just a trust in something you can't see,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
faith is not exclusive to Christianity.
Yeah.
If you with exception to an agnostic, every single people group in the world has to have faith
Mhm.
to truly believe what they believe. If you are an evolutionist, an atheist, and an evolutionist, then you absolutely have to have faith to believe in that creation story,
Mhm.
to believe that all these laws have been constant for millions of years, but then to also simultaneously believe that they all were disregarded during that one creation event at the very beginning.
Mhm.
By the very laws of physics that you say are constant, your creation story is impossible. So you have to have faith to believe in at least one miracle,
Mhm.
at least one supernatural event. And in our case, that one supernatural event is that there is a creator, a supernatural being who is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent outside of space and time that created everything that we know as reality.
Mhm.
That's our one miracle. And if you can believe that, then everything else makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you can't believe that, then you're going to be believing in some other God or some other prophet or some other man, teacher, or some process that we can't prove, some creation story that we have no evidence for. There's always faith involved. This is not a strictly Christian ideology. Just before somebody gets lost in the weeds there, this is definitely not exclusive. Everybody has to have faith. It's just people have faith in different things.
Yeah, so now that we kinda have the definition, I think we can go into, like, how to actually build a lifestyle of faith, how to implement it. What does it even mean to have faith in a situation? So first, just believing in something that you can't see. I think the first situation that I gave is just knowing God's character, knowing who you're putting your faith in. If you don't know who you're trusting, who you're gonna step out in faith for, then it's really hard to actually do it.
This is a great verse. If you want to use scripture as your definition for faith, this is the verse to do it. This is Hebrews 11, verse 1. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for,
Mm,
the evidence of things not seen. So, I mean, let's
mhm.
break that down. The substance of things hoped for. I feel like it's saying faith is the substance. Faith is the real part, and just hoping for something doesn't really do anything. Like hope is not a course of action, but faith is
Yeah.
the substance there. Faith is what you're clinging to. You can't cling to hope, but you can cling to faith.
Mhm.
And then it says the evidence of things not seen. Again, you're clinging to faith as the proof of things that you can't even see.
That's really good. So that's perfect for the definition. I think another very practical step that you can do to implement having a stronger faith life is just by asking the Lord for it. And I know that's very simple, but a lot of times people don't really put enough weight on just the fact that you can ask the Lord. Like, if you can't hear his voice, ask the Lord to help you hear his voice.
Yeah.
If you're struggling with having faith in a certain area, having the faith to just step out and start a new job or quit the job that you're at or having faith to, do this thing, ask the Lord for it. So if you know his character and then you're asking him, Lord, will you help me have faith in this area to just step out and do this thing? Maybe you're needing a healing, a deliverance, or something like that, and you just don't have enough faith that it will actually be done. Like, for let's use a healing as an example. If you're wanting to be healed from this thing and you just don't have enough faith that it can actually be done, you can ask the Lord for help. And we know that by the scripture that says, He said, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief.
Yeah.
When it came to healing his daughter, I think it was.
Mm.
And he was asking the Lord, like, Lord, help me. I believe in you, but help my unbelief. He didn't have enough faith in that area that it could actually be done. And he was looking at Jesus.
Yeah.
So how much more do we need to say, Lord, like, help me give me the faith in this area, and he will give it to you. I think it's super helpful, especially if you're needing healing, something that you can't necessarily see. Maybe you're needing money and you're like, I think I should quit my job. Maybe the Lord's just telling you to take this huge step, and you're like, why would I quit my job? Because I need more money. And the Lord's just really, testing you and seeing if you're going to listen. You can pray and say, Lord, give me the faith to actually take that step and do it. And I think that's a very practical area that you can, implement.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so good. We always have to remember that the Lord is not a taskmaster seeing what we can get done. He's a helper. He wants to help us get it done.
Mhm.
He has things he wants us to do, but he also wants to help us do them.
Yeah, that's good.
One other thing that I feel like faith, that I've learned about faith in the past couple of years is how to use it, how to weaponize it
Mhm.
to get more done. So I'm going to read an excerpt here. Hebrews chapter 11 is the faith chapter. So I'm going to read 11, 32 through 38. And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah, and also of David and Samuel and the prophets, who, through faith, subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to flight the armies of the aliens, women received their dead raised to life again. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance that they might obtain a better resurrection. Still others had trial of mockings and scourgings, yes, and of chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were tempted, they were slain with the sword, they wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, and tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered the deserts and mountains, in dens and caves of the earth. From 32 to 35, he's talking about those who used faith to get things done. And then 35, the second half of 35, all the way through verse 38, he's talking about those who had enough faith to survive a martyr's death or to survive a persecuted life. Both are very important. I want to touch on the first half today, using faith to get things done. So I'm going to read this verse again. This is 32 and 33. And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me. Like, I don't have enough time to tell you about all these people. For time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah, also of David and Samuel and the prophets. Verse 33, who, through faith, subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, and goes on with all of their actions, all the things that they did. It was through faith. By this verse, you read this verse and you start to get a picture like faith is the linchpin that's holding all of this together. Faith is how you enact what God has told you to do. Because if you don't truly believe, it's not going to happen. You have to have faith that Jesus is who he says he is, faith that what he has told you came from him, first of all, and will happen. And if you can do that the way that these people did, you will see amazing miracles come to pass.
That's good. And when you were saying that, it made me think of this other verse in Ephesians. It made me think of the verse in Ephesians that's talking about like put on the armor of God
Totally.
and your weapons in warfare, and faith is one of them. And I'm going to read that whole passage because it's really talking about how important all of these things are, but then faith is like the one above all. This says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, rulers of the darkness in this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. But above all, taking the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. It's really pointing out that says, and I circled that word here in my Bible, all. It says above all,
Mm-hmm.
taking the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench every fiery dart of the wicked one, like all of them.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important to know that faith is something you cannot walk this life without. If
Yeah.
you do not have faith in Jesus, having faith that he will do the thing that he said he would do, then how will you have faith to even believe in him? If you start questioning, well, should I even believe this? Should I not? I mean, that's your foundation. How will you stand against every fiery dart of the wicked one? How will you be able to quench it if you don't even have faith in the one that's going to protect you from it and having faith to know that he will deliver you from those things?
Yeah.
So, I think that that verse really it goes along with what you were saying too.
Totally. I was going to go there next.
Really?
Yeah. It's great. And it just fortifies my belief that faith is the linchpin. It says above all,
Yep.
take the shield of faith. That faith is just like the centerpiece, man. It's so important to get this. You don't actually have to be full. I mean, Jesus said even the faith the size of a mustard seed could move mountains.
Yeah.
But you have to have faith.
Yeah, and I mean, it even takes faith to believe in God. If you don't even have faith that he died for you and that he wants the best for you, how can you have faith in every other area?
Yeah.
So, faith really does, it's the foundations, I think, of a Christian walk with Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's very important to have like knowledge, and like have the verses to answer questions if you're in a debate or all these things. But there is always a question that knowledge alone can't answer.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to have faith, or your faith, your belief, not your faith as in like this kind of faith, but like your religion is going to fall apart
Mhm.
if you can't operate solely on faith in some of these areas, because there are some questions that just can't be answered. Same for every belief. Evolutionists believe things that can't be answered. Muslims believe things that can't be answered.
Mhm.
Buddhism, Islam, atheists, every single person, like I said in the beginning, every person has to have faith in something. That's why I feel like it's so important as a
Yeah,
Christian. If everybody has to have it, and we're the ones that are the most attacked over it, then it's probably most important for us.
that's good. Yeah, so that kinda covers the definition and how to implement it, like practical steps, and then that's also just talking about what it is, and why it's so important, but I think we also have to mention that there does come a point when you actually have to walk it out. You actually have to practice
Yeah.
having faith, and so that looks like, when you are in your prayer time and the Lord is telling you, "This is what I want you to do." Maybe it's quit your job. We've been through that, we've experienced that, which
Yeah.
is a good example of how we practically did it, but the Lord was telling us, "Quit your job." With no other way, he typically doesn't provide another way first before you are supposed to do the hard thing
Yep.
because that doesn't require faith. And Jesus wants you to have faith in him. So he's going to tell you to do something first to see if you'll listen. So what that looks like is him telling you in your private time or in church or just whenever you need to quit your job. You need to do this thing.
Yeah.
And then it's up to you. So a lot of people say they'll kind of stop there. Like, I know the Lord's telling me to do this thing. I think maybe I'm not really sure. And then they'll just kind of stop there because they're not positive. And that's where it's still on you because you need to make a decision.
Yep.
You need to say, Lord, is this from you or not? You need to be clear with that. He will make that very clear to you if it's actually from Him. And then once you do actually know this is actually what I'm supposed to do, it's on you to actually walk it out. Make that decision and quit your job. There
Yeah.
is nothing more important than following through and doing what the Lord told you to do
Right.
because it's a dangerous area to know what he's telling you to do and to choose not to.
Right.
That's slowly drifting away from him. It's not necessarily as bad when you're just not sure because then you just need to pray more and say, Lord, I'm really not positive if this is your voice or not. But once you do know for a fact, you cannot say no to the Lord. You cannot make that decision not to do something because you don't have enough faith, because you're too scared. Whatever it is, you have to listen. And so that step between knowing what you're supposed to do and having the faith to walk it out, that's the practicality. And that's what's the hardest step for most people. It's not knowing what faith is or how do I implement it into my life or getting more of it. It's just the practicality of doing it, like actually walking it out, walking into your job and saying, I quit when you have no backup plan,
Yep.
or selling your vehicle when you don't have another one, or going to this new church that you've never been to and you're super scared. Whatever it is, it could be something huge, it could be something small, but the practicality of walking it out, I think, is the hardest part, but it's the most rewarding. You have to know, even if I don't get anything in return, I'm still listening to the Lord, and there's something that I have to learn here. One of the most important things that I think you can learn in a season is if you're still stuck in a season and you have no idea why you're still there and it's a difficult season, you need to ask the Lord, Lord, what am I supposed to get out of this season? Because I'm clearly not leaving it until I learn something. It's been a long time. I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. Maybe you're just not hearing that you're supposed to do this other thing, but well, I quit my job. That's what the Lord told me to do. Now what? And you're just hearing nothing. And you need to just say to the Lord, am I missing something? What's this lesson that I'm supposed to learn so that I can move on, you
Yeah.
know? And I think just taking that practical step, that's the hardest part though.
Yeah, something that you just said made me think of one of God's names. He has so many names: the Prince of Peace, the Great Physician, the El Shaddai, Great I Am. Jehovah Jireh. The list goes on and on. But one of them that has to do with faith is, I don't know if this is really a name, but I know it's in Scripture that He is the author and perfecter of our faith. And something that you were saying is like making me realize we do not grow our faith.
Mhm.
We can choose to obey what God tells us, and our faith grows as a result.
Mhm.
But He's the one that's perfecting our faith.
Mhm.
He's saying, I need you to go do this, and I'll tell you why if you do it.
Mhm.
And by doing that and trusting what the Lord is telling you, your faith will grow because He is not a man that he should lie.
Mhm.
And so you see that his words carry weight and value and is not going to lead you astray. And so that builds your faith. I think faith in God could be seen as God's track record in some ways. I feel like the more experience you have with God, the more experience you have listening to his instruction without the full explanation, the more your faith will grow.
Mhm.
And so, in a way, your faith is exactly related to God's track record with you. And
That's
that's why
good.
I think I think that's why he is called the author and the perfecter of our faith, because he tells us what he wants us to do. And in turn, our faith grows. So it's kind of like he is growing our faith for us if we choose to listen.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that they say you need to step out in faith. You may not have enough faith. It's not this thing you can see. But if you know the Lord and his character and you know he's telling you to do something, you have enough faith at that time to just make the decision because you know who Jesus is and you know that he won't let you down. And it's going to be scary. Having faith doesn't mean that you don't have a little bit of a nervousness about it. Like you can be unsure, but you can still make the right decision. Having faith is still choosing to obey and to make this decision to say yes, even though I'm scared or I'm a little bit nervous. All those feelings are fine as
Yeah,
long as you're still making that decision to move forward with what you know the Lord told you to do.
totally.
What would you say to someone who's struggling with not knowing, like not having enough faith? How would you tell them to get more faith?
Ask the Lord. I would probably warn them about doing that, because what's going to happen is they're going to be put in a position where they have to step out in faith.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, if they do that, their faith will grow.
Yeah.
When you ask the Lord for patience, does he give you patience, or does he put you in a position where
Mm.
your patience will grow? It's always the position. He wants you to grow. He loves you too much to see you stagnate.
Mhm.
He wants to see you grow in every area, especially the areas that you ask him about. There's only one promise, one thing that you can ask of the Lord that I know of, that he will just give freely instead of putting you in a position for that thing to grow. And that's wisdom and discernment.
Mhm.
Those are unconditional promises. As many times as you ask the Lord for wisdom and discernment, he is faithful to give those to you. Those
Mhm.
are unconditional. But all the other attributes that we want and desire, they require some form of sacrifice or service to him, like faith or patience in my example. He's going to put you in a position where you're going to have to exercise patience.
Mhm.
And through that, you get better and better and better at it, and your patience grows and grows and grows. And I think it's the same with faith. I really do.
Mhm.
Like I said, he's the author and the perfecter. We cannot perfect it on our own. he puts us in positions where it will start growing.
Yeah, and then before you know it, the more that you do something, the easier and easier it gets,
Yep.
and the more you're not even really thinking about it. So something that might have taken you so long to step out in faith to do, it's just gonna become second nature, and you're not even gonna have to think about it anymore, and then that's when you're called to something bigger,
Right.
and the Lord is saying, "Do this thing," and you're like, "Oh, I don't have enough faith." You get a little bit more faith, you pray for it, he teaches you, and he guides you and lets you know it's gonna be okay. The stepping out in faith never changes. It's still that hard of a step, but when you grow in him, you're stretching yourself to be able to make that decision. So you're just stronger than you were before. Whereas when you were, step one, making this small decision that's now not that hard for you. Now, if you were at that place looking at this second decision, this huge one, you could have never just jumped straight from this point of view to the
Yeah.
second. But it took those first few baby steps to get you there. It's this thing that just keeps growing in your walk with the Lord. And before you know it, you come to a place where you're like, who cares? I mean, the Lord told us quit both your jobs, rent your house out, live in an RV, travel the US. We don't even know where we're going next. And we're just like, he's never let us down before, so let's just do it.
Yep.
We no longer have to know, like, well, what about this? What about this? People are asking us, when are you coming back or when are you going to do this? We're like, we don't know. Ask the Lord. If you want to tell us, that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
we'd love to know.
Yeah.
But it's just letting go and letting God, which I hate, letting go, let God.
Right.
But it's so true. You're just letting go of your life and you're saying, you know what? God will tell us whenever we don't know when we're going back home. We don't know where we're going tomorrow. We have no clue. But we do know that we're in the Lord's will and that we're doing what He's asked us to do. But it took so many baby steps
Yeah.
first in order for us to get to this place where we're
Right.
just like, we'll let the Lord lead.
So much faith and so much practice hearing his voice.
Hmm.
Both of those things are kind of just go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You can't have faith in something if you don't know for sure who it came from,
Hmm.
because who it came from is kind of what you're having the faith in.
Yeah.
I have faith to follow the words of the Lord because I know 100% that they are from the Lord.
Hmm.
If there's any doubt in my mind where they're from, that affects my levels of faith.
Hmm.
They're definitely hand in hand for me.
Hmm.
Something else that I would say to somebody who was struggling with faith is I would tell them to make sure that they know that those words are from the Lord.
Yeah.
If there's any doubt in your mind there, it's not going to help that situation at all.
Yeah. And again, just ask the Lord, Lord, remove the
That's
doubt,
right.
make your voice clear, all of those things. But I think another thing that people don't really, they don't give the Lord a chance to move. The saying like, let go and let God. So many people, they're like, all right, I let go, but they're not letting God. Like they don't actually let the Lord do anything in their lives. Because so many people, once they make that big decision, they quit their job. Let's say, we're using that as an example. They quit their job and then they just watch TV all day. Or they just go shopping, like, oh, I quit my job. The Lord told me to. Okay, well, now what are you doing next? That's on you to figure that out. Listen to the Lord. He's telling you. But if you waste that time, that's where it's gonna be your fault. You need to quit your job, do that, and then say, "Okay, Lord, now what? I did step 1. I know that there's a step 2 because you're not just gonna leave me." But if you don't actually give the Lord the time to work, the area to work, like that's something we've had to implement is, "Okay, we've done these things, we've quit our jobs, we've done this. Now we're making time to sit and listen to the Lord
Yeah.
because now is the important part. Now is where our life is changing and where, the Lord could tell us to move across the country. He could tell us to just go back home, get this job, this degree. Everything is new now. And now is the point where it's like, okay, we have to be in tune with the Lord because if we make the wrong decision, it's like that's going to be our fault because He's telling you. And
Right.
so you really have to make room for the Lord. Do the step that He's telling you to do and then sit back and listen and just really, spend time in the Lord's presence. Say, what now? Lord, show me. Lord, tell me anything you want. I'm your servant. If you want me to move to Africa, I will do it. You can't just say yes to this part and then because this one's a little bit harder, say no. So I think that's a part that a lot of people they trap God. They say, "Oh, I quit my job because the Lord told me to." It's like, "Oh, well, what did you get out of that?" The Lord's not just going to tell you to do that with nothing in return.
Yep.
He's going to have something even better. And so give him the opportunity to show you what that is and then follow through with the whole journey, not just the first step.
Totally.
But yeah, so that's the definition, how to implement it, the importance of faith. We've kind of talked about everything, But the last point I think that's super important to talk about is just the beauty of it, like the outcome of having faith. And there's so many, I feel like we can give so many stories of just, we had faith in this area and this is what the Lord did. You know, it has nothing to do with us, but I think just literally you can just go on YouTube and Google like faith testimonies, faith
Mm,
stories, healing testimonies, anything like that. And that's going to encourage you to have so much faith. If you're struggling with healing, Google healing testimonies. If you're struggling with deliverance, deliverance testimonies. If you're struggling with practicalities, just like life, having faith in life, Google those testimonies and that builds your faith like crazy. Because if you find someone who's been delivered of the same thing that you're going through, and you say, you know what, the Lord did that for them. Like there's no reason why he wouldn't do that for me. He loves me just the same. So I would say to do
right.
that and just look at all of the beauty that comes from having faith. Go to people in your church, ask your pastor, just go on any sort of social media platform and just Google faith, faith stories. How did this person implement faith in what area of their life and what was the outcome? What's that testimony for them? And I think that that is something that's so powerful, especially if maybe you're not involved in a church, you don't have a lot of community. Implement social media for good reasons. Don't just go on there to scroll. Actually use it for something positive and to uplift you because we have so much information at our fingertips right now. I mean, if you just look up scripture verses that have to do with faith and stories in the Bible where someone reached out, stepped out in faith, like the woman with the issue of blood. There's so
Yep.
many stories that I would encourage you just as this last kind of step about faith is to just encourage you to get more, is to just listen to stories. It just builds your faith so much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I feel like that's like kind of the third point of our little mini sermon here.
Mhm.
You said the first two, which should be knowing the Lord's character. That's how you build faith.
Mhm.
Number two, asking the Lord. And like I said, He's not going to give you that faith, but He is going to put you in a position where your faith will grow. And then you were just now saying the joy that comes from implementing all those. And then you were talking about testimony. And it got me thinking like another great way to
Mhm.
build your faith is to see everybody else's testimony and to
Yeah.
read those testimonies or watch those testimonies and just see how powerful faith can be.
Mhm.
See it move mountains in others' lives so that you can move mountains in your own life.
Yeah, it's so good, it's so
Awesome.
important. But I think that's everything that we wanted to cover. I think we've kind of went into every category, but faith is such a powerful thing. I think if you
Totally.
can learn anything from this episode, it's just ask the Lord for more faith for
Yeah.
whatever situation you're going through.
Right. One last little metaphor here I just came in my head. If you're familiar with the anatomy of a helicopter, there's something called a Jesus bolt. They call it that. That's kind of their slang term for it. But there's one giant bolt that holds the entire rotor on, and then the rotor spins, and that's obviously what lifts the helicopter up. I feel like faith is the Jesus bolt of Christianity.
Mm,
Where, and what I mean is, if you don't have faith, nothing else works. Eventually, that rotor's coming off, and the helicopter's going to fall, and your
mhm.
faith is going, your religion is going to crumble because you just don't have faith. But yeah, with that, I think we're out of here for the day, guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Counterculture Podcast. If you like this type of content, we release new episodes every Monday morning at 6 a.m. and short form content every day on our Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Again, thanks so much for being here with us, and we'll see y'all next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.